Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. This episode is sponsored by Rimmel Greenhouse Systems, makers of quality greenhouse structures. Whether you're just getting started or buying your 10th tunnel, Rimmel has a structure to fit your needs. I've purchased and grown in Rimmel houses and would recommend them to everyone. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today my guest is Dr. Tammy Gray-Steele, who is the founder, CEO of National Women in Agriculture Association, the largest nonprofit women in agriculture organization in the world. She's an agriculturalist, entrepreneur, strategic business developer, educator, and civil rights for women and children's advocate. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So give us a little bit of your background. Did you grow up on a farm?
I did. I actually grew up on a farm that came from the original 40 Acres and a Mule Emancipation Proclamation Act.
Okay.
Currently, my family still run beef cattle in the southeastern part of Oklahoma, which is called Sasakwa, Oklahoma.
Okay. And so that was just when you were growing up, did you do any other crops or was it just cattle at that point?
No, definitely vegetable crop, as we call it, row crops from all type of vegetables, a full-fledged farm, raised chickens, for eggs and pigs and all. It's still pretty much a full-fledged farm. We don't do as many crops because, people died off and a lot of the family has moved away, but my uncle still maintained the farm, the original 40 acres.
Yeah. Well, back in a couple of decades ago, it was a lot more common to have, that wide variety of crops on the farm. And now it's just, industrial ag has taken over. So what was the next step after, I think you headed to New York City?
I did. After my secondary education, going to college at Oklahoma University and just not really still feeling that I was accomplished or not accomplished enough in my life in my early 20s. I moved to New York City and I worked there on Wall Street and attended NYU Law School. I have a legal degree. I'm not an attorney. I'm more of a legal analyst, as they like to call me now. And worked, like I said, on Wall Street for a Jewish law firm. And I was groomed diligently and carefully by some of the best attorneys there on Wall Street, how to conduct business, being an Afro-American woman.
So talk a little bit about that. Was that, did you feel like there was like a shell you had to break or ceiling you had to break as you were kind of working through that?
Oh, of course. Being from the rural Oklahoma area, it was culture shock, literally and figuratively, for my body. I went through from walking on concrete, where I was used to, being in a car and to the house and vice versa. But there, my body went through a culture shock as well as a language barrier. I was not, I was a country girl. So seeing people like myself with the same skin color that I have speaking Spanish, it was like, who are they? And it was like on another planet. Yeah. But, and also to understand the dialect when talking to people on the phone at the law firm and just, conducting business. But part of the training tool that the attorneys gave me, they let me begin to read deposition transcripts at jury trials. So I was able to learn how to, read, articulate, not learn how to read, but, articulate and be able to relate and be able to communicate effectively to the jurors, if you will. And that was part of my training. I look back now, like they were grooming me and polishing me how to properly be an urban city Wall Street girl.
So how long were you in New York City for?
I was there for 5 years almost. And I met my husband on a visit back here in Oklahoma, and I couldn't convince him to move to New York. Shock, shock. So it was an easy move for me to move back home to Oklahoma, and that's how I came back as a result of meeting my husband.
And what got you back into agriculture?
Well, again, being bored in Oklahoma, I was working for law firms here, as well as then I transitioned and started working for the energy company in their legal department, doing contract gas and oil, law, and working on contracts and things of that nature. But I started to volunteer at agriculture conferences for the National Black Farmers Association. I started kind of under them, just taking care of their paperwork, making sure people were registered at the conferences, just making sure everybody got in, just usual conference coordination. And I noticed at the conference that there were women there, but the majority were men, and they were doing all the talking and all these different things that needed to be done when working with the USDA. And I saw that women were there with them, but they didn't have a voice, and they were just basically kind of like a file cabinet, if you will. The husband would just hand them the paper, and they were just quiet. And they didn't have any input as far as when it was open dialogue. The woman farmer, if you will, from the farm just didn't have a voice. So I approached actually it was my supervisor, who was an attorney from Texas that was working in the oil and gas industry there at the energy company, and told him my idea to open something or start an organization for women, and specifically women of color, because I felt that, it was as if we didn't even exist. And actually the USDA didn't even start counting Black women farmers, if you will, until our organization was founded. I mean, it was like we weren't even on Earth.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, because you've been on national turf too. You've done some USDA SARE Advisory Council. Talk about that.
And that was also dealing with the actual statistical service count. I sat on the National Agriculture Statistics Service Board Advisory Council. And what that consisted of is also helping bring awareness or getting a head count of minority women farmers, not just Black farmers, but women farmers across the nation, as well as being involved in some of the stock market or the opening trading that comes out of Chicago. I've been involved in some of those lock-ins and things like that in Washington, D.C., where I had input about, things that were happening to our crops and the cost.
Yeah. Now, did that happen after you started the association?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, gotcha. So you started the association, and then a lot of these things came up out of that as you started to get your voice out there and share the mission.
Correct.
Gotcha. Talk us through a little bit about, you mentioned one right there, that women just don't have a voice. Talk us through about some of the challenges women face in agriculture. And then, obviously specifically too, more of the women of color.
I live a good example. Myself being a, pretty established, I would say accomplished woman in agriculture. I was named one of the 4 top women during the Obama administration in the country. They had an event, and I represented this part of the country, and as being the only Black woman in agriculture on the tier that we are, because our organization, there are several women in agriculture conferences every day across the country. However, our organization goes a little bit personal and more deeper to bring the numbers, if you will, because most minorities do not have the educational background or the socioeconomic assistance or capacity, that's the correct word, capacity to assist them in the agriculture industry. Because our organization is basically set for outreaching and helping with technical services. That's from reading a document, understanding it, and gaining the trust for them to execute it, to participate in USDA programs. And that's how we leverage our grants or what have you. But we have further noticed that as a woman and a woman of color, you still have challenges on both sides. When I say that, dealing with men and men of color. We get a lot of pushback, like stay in your place. And then white Caucasian women and Black women. We have that stay in your place. This, you have enough money, you've gotten these little grants, so you need to be happy. And I literally have people say that, and leaders say that to me, well, you got this amount of money, so you should be okay. But I am of that mindset that we are trying to become a pilot program to 4-H for at-risk youth to receive sustainable funding. And what that would look like, because since 1914, under the Smith-Lever Act, my research and my fact check by PR firms in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, they have confirmed that my findings are correct, and that there has never been a Black congressional chartered organization to receive sustainable funding. Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah.
So,
and sustainable funding is funding like year after year. That's kind of like built into the budget.
It's automatically allocated through Congress every year. That Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, United Way, 4-H, FFA, all of those, and several others. I have the list because my PR firm that partners with me did further research and pulled all the congressional chartered organizations, and not one is a Black congressional chartered organization. And that in itself, I guess, again, we get put in our place that, don't go down that road. Although the money is there, I am blessed enough to work with good Caucasian men leaders from both sides of the aisle. When I say that, Republicans and Democrats that believe in what, they want to go down in history because they understand business and they understand this whole equity and inclusion thing that this whole administration talks about. And our findings and our request to become chartered, the first Black congressional chartered organization, as well as receiving this funding to become a pilot program to 4-H. They're on board with it. They're like, wow, this is exactly what our country needs to help with the, crime, to help with food desert issues, to help as a recruiting agent for colleges. You're developing good people. You're increasing the Black farmers count, if you will. Women, we did it. And me as an Afro-American woman, I guess it just kind of blows their minds that it happened, and God gave it to me.
I actually didn't know that all these organizations you mentioned had federal charters. It just shows you.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I'm someone who's a little bit more, versed in some politics than the average person. I serve actually locally on our city council. So, but I did not know. Wow, that blows my mind.
It's deep.
It's deep. Yeah. But I mean, and you look at the kind of work you're doing and it's like, why can't?
Why can't?
Yeah.
And we are blessed to be endorsed by the largest agriculture lobbying organization that lobbies at the White House for farmers and agriculture. They have endorsed us.
Yeah.
And that, of course, they're a Caucasian organization. My uncle is probably one of the only Afro-Americans that sit on the board with them, that advisory council, if you will, that's where he sits. But they blessed our organization with an in writing saying, Tammy, yes, we endorse what you're doing. And there's money in the Smith-Lever Act for you as well, for you all, because, that money is already allocated. It has been since 1914. And part of that 50 million comes out approximately, this is approximate numbers, but I have it in writing from leadership also, where the money comes from Congress, goes to a specific agency at the USDA, and then is dispersed to the land grant universities. And the land grant universities, in essence, then gives a portion to like 4-H and different programs that is administered through their extension agencies, which all of these things are not still in the Black communities. They're not at the grassroots level. And they say, how do I know? I've been almost all over the America in all these Title I schools. Headquarters sits in the heart of minority food desert, one of the lowest academic scorings in the country. And I know for a fact they're not here. In those programs like 4-H and FFA. I mean, I've taken our children to programs that, I would never put them in those positions again because I felt it belittled them because they were like the little Black children sitting on the side, and, all the wonderful 4-Hers and FFAers, were at this ceremony, which was beautiful. I love that program. That's the program that needs to be in, and I plan to adopt their curriculum. But of course, putting some culture specific innovations on it, if you will. Yeah.
So what you're telling me is that a lot of those organizations don't have chapters or don't have clubs or in these schools that are
not at all. No.
Wow.
Our children has never even heard of these programs. Grown-ups haven't heard of them. You have inner city, and even in our rural areas, like I know for a fact in rural areas where I'm from, those programs are no longer there because of budgeting, and it just shouldn't be in this day and time that you have big corporations. That's something that just happened that blew all our minds, that are receiving big fundings from the Biden administration, but then you have children who can become true sustainable agriculture leaders and produce food for our country and become scientists and doctors and lawyers. They don't get the opportunity because you have the big corporations of people that pretty much should be retired off the grid, like be mentoring someone.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why we're just forgiving past college debt. Why don't we have some of these kids get some of that money so they can, can go to an agricultural school? I mean, I'm not saying a 4-year college degree is for everyone. I think a lot of people don't need that because I think there's a lot of other, but these trade schools, these, learning how to farm with these, going to, apprentice on some other farms. I think that could be a great use to allow these kids, which are, again, stuck in this vicious cycle in this inner cities that just don't have that chance to get out. Yeah, absolutely.
Their cycle is to go to school, if they go and if they finish, and then learn how to hustle money to either become a rapper or and if they make it past high school, to be an athlete or, a hairdresser, all the things that are not sustainable. Those are not true foundations for our children. No. And I don't know why leadership have allowed for so many years this to take place. And that's the reason you have the high incarceration and deaths in the minority communities, because they are all taught superficial characteristics of life, that is not a foundation. So they are totally lost when they can't drive a car, they can't wear certain hair, they can't wear a lash, they can't wear, all the things that are superficial, or clothing, designer clothing. Then they go try to steal it or beat their way through it. And when that happens, death or incarceration. And that's how it happens.
Yeah. Wow. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's some heavy stuff, but I have to say, I am very, very fortunate. There are leaders in the USDA that are taking the time and working with some congressional leaders and others to assist us to try to get this bill introduced this Congress. I've been told they're trying to get it across the line, by November, or even like meet with the White House, the president and advisory policy council at the White House to see what Black women farmers have done. Over 15 years almost.
Yeah. Hey, thriving farmers, each year we are faced with two important investment decisions. We should be investing in systems that increase productivity and in inputs that develop soil. In December of 2020, I was introduced to a seed, soil, and foliar prebiotic treatment. This product is called Ultra. Ultra is an OMRI-listed prebiotic formula manufactured by AgriGrow. I have personally been running several trials testing Ultra on my farm. I'm impressed. Ultra increased our strawberry yield production by 18%. On a 900 square foot trial, $6 in product cost returned me $868 worth of marketable strawberries. We also had decade-old heirloom corn seed that I have been trying to germinate with no success. In a Hail Mary attempt with my remaining few seeds, I soaked them overnight in a diluted solution of Ultra. They germinated. If you would like to try Ultra or any other AgriGrow product, I believe this would be a worthwhile investment on your farm. Here's the best news yet. AgriGrow has agreed to offer a 10% discount to all Thriving Farmer listeners. Simply use the coupon code THRIVE when you check out. Again, that is THRIVE for a 10% off discount on your first order. Head to smallfarm.solutions to order today. Talk to us a little bit about the Minority Women Farmers Equality Inclusion Act.
That's what it is. That's the act that, again, we were brought to the congressional table by the former chairman, Mike Conway. He was the agriculture chairman. Mr. Conway is a man and a leader that I think should be president because he lives what he believes and what he goes to church. You know, all the things that I think that God puts in everyone, but he chooses to utilize it to be fair. Long story short, he came to our conference in Michigan back in 2013. We sent out, when we do our announcement of a conference, our symposium, as we call it, because we like to soften it for the women. Our annual symposium we had in Detroit, Michigan, and we sent out the notice to all congressional leaders, to everyone we could think of, you know, on the Hill. And imagine that, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee responded, not him, but his staff. Yeah. And he came himself in person. He didn't send staff. He showed up. And I'm talking about even people in that state or leaders in that state, they sent staff. They didn't come. But Mr. Conway, who's from Texas, he came in person. So that was a big deal. I love it. Yeah. And he's
that's awesome. Yeah. He's crossing all sorts of boundaries.
Exactly. And that's when I say, and I always give him many, many shout outs because he's still with us. If you go out to our website, you would see a video of he and ranking member Glenn Thompson out of Pennsylvania. Again, I'm not in their district. I'm in Oklahoma. But then we've reached out to other congressional leaders in the other party. I'm not either party, so go figure. So, but point being is this how you know leaders are real. We reach out to some of the leaders that look like myself. I have the same skin color. And they say, you know what? You're not in my district. And I'm like, I said, we get this a lot. And I'm like, what does that have to do with you being the Congress member of the United States to help bring about a change for our equity and inclusion for everyone? But that's not my place to even go there. But these are the issues that causes things not to happen.
And you mentioned your website. What is that website so folks can go navigate there?
It is NWIAA.org. That's for National Women in Agriculture Association. So N as in Nancy, W as in window, I as in ink. AA, Apple.
Okay. All right. Got it.
So in there also, please have them sign our petition because we do have a petition with over 3,000 names. We're trying to reach the 5,000 name mark by the end of this month. And going into the new year of October 1, to have those 5,000 names on a petition for this bill or this Equity and Inclusion Act of ours.
So so if they scroll down the homepage a little bit, it's a picture of a student holding a "I Stand with Dr. Steele" sign here petition. Okay, that's on the right. I'm going to do that right now. Share with us, what's the most rewarding part of your job?
Children. Being able to provide these opportunities to children. The most rewarding is that I feel that what we're doing and what we have done, we are now 64 chapters nationwide. We are the largest nonprofit minority organization in the world. When I reason world, because we have 14 chapters in Africa. We're opening up one in Thailand, Greece, and Vietnam. So again, all of our movements, working with women and children go together. So what we try to do is get our women in positions to be chapter leaders or community leaders, however, even from their own farms, but get those fundings in there to their areas so they could educate and reach other farmers, but specifically children, underserved children, to get them at an early age Like we like to call them our bumblebees and butterflies. That's our young people, 6 years old. Or we even have like an agriculture child care here. We start them as early as 6 weeks old, and they go through our programs all the way up until 12. They become hip hop producers or junior agri-diva education, JADES. Okay. And then we get them groomed up, teaching them, the foundations of growing food and staying consistent and just being good people, all the life skills, being nice people, and basically teaching them how to be consistent, because that is the issue in underserved communities with people. And doing that through agriculture and growing food and taking care of animals and things like that, they get to see what they are able to develop and bring to the whole eco or humanitarian system, if you will, that they are so important to help this earth be a better place. And that's the most rewarding to me, is to help develop good people, and when I walk away and see success stories with children that go on to college or to military or to a trade school, or they start their own gardens in their backyard. I have children that come through our program that still stop by and see me at the academy, and they literally are doing gardens in their backyards. That in itself, and they're not college students, but they're working jobs consistently because they came through my program. So that means a lot to me, that, I saved some kids from being incarcerated or, worse, death. Because that happens a lot in underserved communities. But if I don't have the resources, I can't reach them. And that's the issue. And all we're asking is to be a pilot program to 4-H and FFA through our Minority Women and Children Equity and Inclusion Act that was literally named, entitled, it's in draft and all that good stuff back in 2013. And here we are in getting ready to come up on 2023. And this administration, that's all they talk about, right? Equity and inclusion. And that's what our bill says. So if they want to do it, they will do it in this administration. Yeah. Period. It's not that hard.
Yes. How much money is it actually when if that was to work out, how much money would that give you?
Currently, the way it happens, and I have it in black and white from the USDA agency, our leader that is over the program, 50 million comes out every year, approximately, is set aside for youth programs for 4-H, where we're saying, why can't we have the same for our children? And not touching their money, because again, I say this and I mean it from my heart. 4-H and FFA are the best youth programs I have ever seen. When I say that, even I can go far as even Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts can't stand up to those programs because they teach real life.
My wife went through 4-H. She did a number of years in 4-H, and she talks, frequently about how it was such a good experience for her confidence, for, just learning how to interact with their kids. She speaks very highly of that. And the judging, I think she had rabbits, and then she had goats and sheep. So
phenomenal. Yeah. And you go here to Oklahoma to our state fair that I think it just opened this week. You go to the livestock shows, and I do it purposely sometimes, but I'm a country girl, so I'm going to always go to ag stuff. Yeah. And when it saddens my heart when I don't see any brown children out there participating, that to me in itself, it shows that something is wrong in our system, that we don't even have offer those programs. And you said, well, Tammy, why didn't you join or try to become part of them? I did that. And the way it's structured, I, went through all the trainings, took my staff. It was at least 8 of us that I took to try to get us, under the charter or what have you. But the way it's structured, the funding just doesn't trickle all the way down. It's no one's fault. It's the way their structure is. And, you have to volunteer and all that. But we're minorities, poor minorities, we can't volunteer those type hours. I have to make sure the lights stay on here to keep people having jobs. Even if I go out and ask parents to come, they can't, because they're trying to keep their lights on at home and raise children. Those are not, so we just want to be a pilot program and offer these same opportunities to all children. It's not one set that deserve to have those opportunities. All children deserve opportunities in agriculture. And it's that simple.
Yeah, because a lot of these most schools are mixed, so you're going to have all
Yes.
sorts of kids there anyway. But it's this whole swath of schools that are not being represented because of the income gap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's economics. It's all it is. And socioeconomic issues should not determine the health or well-being of a child. I just think that is so inhumane, if you will, and poor leadership.
Did you say 50 million goes just to 4-H?
Yes, it's 300 million total that comes out from the Smith-Lever Act.
Yeah.
That, I think, that is allocated to, well, I know it is. It's allocated to land grant universities. Those are agriculture colleges. The 1862s primarily are the colleges that receive those fundings through the 1914 Smith-Lever Act. You could Google it. It's all public record. So 300 million every year comes through Congress, and it's been coming through there since 1914. And and 50 million of that, approximately, it may be more or less or what have you, but approximately 50 million, and all this is in writing, is allocated to 4-H for youth programs, which again is administered by the land grant universities, or they do it as a solicitation, to make it look fair through grant programs. But if you're not a 4-H program, you don't get the money. So, but they have to announce it through grant solicitation to make it all, in compliance, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, well, I know how those compliance things work. So
there are all type of little, caveats, if you will, that goes with that. And I don't feel like I'm asking or doing anything to, cut into someone else's funding. I just want, but because I've done the research, it's been told to me by the White House advocate firm that the money is there, Tammy, for what you want to do without even touching the other their 50 million. It's there. It's just that you need basically Democrat support, and because I have Republican support. Yeah,
but this sounds like to me that this is something Democrats would jump all over.
You would think, right? But again, I am very, very fortunate. This administration, I do have to say, I do have possibly a Democrat leader. We had one before, but he died, that was sponsoring us on the Hill. Hastings, Mr. Hastings out of Florida.
Yeah.
He was championing us, like really on this, him and his staff. And of course, sickness came, and that kind of went for a couple of years. And then COVID came. So we were just kind of stuck for almost 3 years. But now we do have, and I'm not at liberty right now to release her name because she hadn't totally committed. I mean, when I say commit, it's not in writing yet from her. But, I'm talking very closely with her office, and they pretty much assured that they are going to try to make sure this thing gets across in this Congress. So I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So
very cool. Well, I'm hoping that it happens. Absolutely.
I do too. Then I could start working on my true retirement, right? I could start stepping down to hand over the torch, and I plan to go to do some consulting. I want to, help orphanages in, poor third world countries in agriculture. That's my goal.
That's awesome. Well, so exciting to hear about this. What can people do besides signing the petition? So again, they want to go to your website, which is NWIAA.org. Sign the petition. What else can they do to get involved?
They could actually get their congressional member from either side, Republicans or Democrats, because as you can see, again, on our website, if you scroll down far enough, you would be able to see that we have Republicans that support us on this also. But we need many congressional leaders to give us a letter of support to say that they will help, co-sponsor this thing and get this thing submitted and attached to a bill. Whatever they do, I don't know all the political stuff that they do. But I think that it would help our world be a better place if we get all Congress members on board with this and get it passed before November. So a letter, and it could literally, you could email it to myself here at womeninag@gmail.com. That's WOMENINAG@gmail.com. That letter could come to us, or you could always, like I said, come through our website, join our organization. Members, we always have opportunities for everyone to be highlighted, and resources. We connect you to resources. There are several ways you could help.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer is the best.
Yes. Well, thank you again so much for coming on today. I'm checking out your website here. You guys done a great job laying that all out. Final question, Soil Sisters. Talk about the Soil Sisters project.
Soil Sisters. Oh, that's just another little innovative thing that we do, things that we do to like really connect with all women, because all of us women of all races, we are very diverse. If you go out to our website and click into our states, you would see we have all women. The women that join us that are not, that don't look like those are just women that have hearts and want to help the community. They are all humanitarians. So we call ourselves Soil Sisters because we like to get in the soil and grow food. That's on every level. Even if you're working with cattle or, livestock of any kind, you're still working with the soil. So we call ourselves Soil Sisters instead of Soul Sisters.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Tammy. Appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's very important work. And we wish that this hopefully gets across the finish line, and we will absolutely send out the information to our email list. Hopefully you can get a few thousand signatures from that. So.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. This episode is sponsored by Rimmel Greenhouse Systems, makers of quality greenhouse structures. Whether you're just getting started or buying your 10th tunnel, Rimmel has a structure to fit your needs. I've purchased and grown in Rimmel houses and would recommend them to everyone. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.